This video is about going in for shirt color. I usually do this after I've got the background done, and it's very similar to the background. You're going to have a large brush and a couple of smaller brushes. You're going to have your water, and again, making some color decisions. So I'm going for a complementary color family, so I'm going to make the shirt blue so that it complements the background. So again, using my larger paintbrush, because this is a pretty large area, I'm just creating big, large areas of flat color to start. The one thing I love about watercolor is it's not really permanent. So the intensity of the color that you see is not necessarily what it will be permanently. You can always go back and go over it again. So it's kind of the same idea. You're going to go through the entire shirt and using more color than paint than water. And when I go to reload, I'm not going to go back in for more water because I really want to start dark and then bring out the lights. And what you'll notice is when you do use more water, it automatically makes the color lighter. When you use less water, it's going to automatically make the color darker. Now, if you use too much water and it starts to pool up, like what you might notice right here, starts to pool up a little bit, all you're going to do is dry off your paintbrush or use a paintbrush that you have not used yet and it's still relatively dry, and what will happen is actually the opposite. You will start to remove paint. So see what's happening here is I'm actually removing paint. So a couple of things to think of with the shirt. You're still aiming for flat color until you have done the entire area. Then you're going to go back and start to think about how can I make it look like there's folds and wrinkles and all those things that make it look like cloth. So I've gotten the entire shirt covered with color, and now we're going to use a smaller paintbrush to start thinking about where is light coming from, where are the areas of dark, where are the areas of light. So for me, I'm going to say light is coming from this side. So we know that generally this side is going to be a little lighter, and this side over here is going to be a little darker. So here's how that's going to look. Using a smaller paintbrush, I'm still sticking with blue because blue is going to help me with all my dark tones. I'm going to go back in, and I really don't have any water on the brush. Just a very, very small amount, just enough to make it so that it will work, you know. And so underneath the collar of my person who just happens to be wearing a collar, that's going to be a little darker. All right, you can start thinking of where would there be areas where there'd be wrinkles or folds or just enough to make it look like it's 3D. All right, so like underneath the collar here is going to be a little darker. The collar would be casting a shadow down onto the shirt. So we don't use black for our shadows. In this case, we're going to use the darkest version of that color. So in this case, I really want to punch up that blue to make the blue around it look lighter. Now, I don't really want this just like this stripe of color, so I'm going to go in for some water, and now we're talking about blending this out. I want to blend it away so it's not so harsh. So I'm going to pull it away from where I had the color originally. So I'm pulling that stripe of color, that strip of color, away with water. Notice how I just went in for some water, yet did not go back in for more color. Just water, no color, to try to blend this away. So we're trying to get this faded effect where it's going from dark to medium to light. All I'm doing is adding more water, more water, more water, until it eventually fades right off the page. Other areas you can think of that might be a little darker but not your darkest would be up against the neck. Maybe a little more water here and just a little more paint, just to give it that effect that the neck is casting a shadow down on the collar. A lot of outlining will take care of some of this too. Now how can we make this area over here look lighter? Now we're going to do like a subtractive form of art. We're going to take our water and we're going to let the water spread out or take away some of the paint. Using water and then using a dry brush is actually going to take away some of the paint. So watch what I'm doing here. I'm prepping this so I can take it away. I'm trying to make it look like wrinkles or folds in my shirt. So I'm prepping it with water, and then I'm going to take it away with a dry brush. So as I take my dry brush, notice what's happening. You're starting to see more of the white of the paper. So if you ever think you made it too dark, you can always do this technique. Put wet on top of dry, and then use a dry brush to take away. Using a lot of dark on this side can also create the illusion of wrinkles or folds.